All right, we are live. What's up, folks? Welcome to another episode of Tuesday Night Live on the 10 Horse Money Fishing YouTube channel, and we got Mr. Matt Stefan on the other end. It's been a little bit. Last time we were on here, you had just finished up the Major League Fishing Invitational at Lake of the Ozarks. You had a really solid finish, and you were right where you needed to be in the points to qualify for the BPTs, but you were a little bit nervous because you still had 2 tournaments to go. Well,
yeah.
You kind of sealed that deal up there on the on the Cross Wisconsin with the win. So congratulations before we get started. It's pretty cool. We were following you, and good work, man.
Man, I appreciate that. And this is one of those sports where you have a good tournament and you feel like you're cruising along, but any tournament can be a hiccup. So to make it through the season, have a great season. And now I look, but as fishermen, we're never satisfied, right? So like, even when you win a tournament, you think about that one that got away, and in this case, I think about how great the season was, but then I think back to the tournament after Lake of the Ozarks, which was the Potomac River. I had a good first day sitting in 20th place, and the second day, I didn't even have that bad of a day. I think I weighed close to 11 pounds, but I dropped to 60th, and that ended up costing me. Had I weighed 1 more pound, I would have won Angler of the Year. So like, that's what I think about now on the season is, I think, so I ended up finishing 3rd in AOI points, but I think Ron Nelson was 20 points ahead of me. So like, I had those points. I just let him slip on day 2 of the Potomac. I actually was leading AOI after the first day at La Crosse. So like Ron and Michael Neal both had really bad first days. And I think it was 5th maybe after the first day. And so I was actually leading it. They both had good second days and picked up a lot more points than I could move up. But dude, I'm not complaining. It sounds like I'm whining, but I'm just saying from a fishing standpoint, it's like you're so close to that, and it would have been pretty cool to have won the AOI as well.
I think that's a competitive standpoint. That's not a fishing standpoint. I mean, if you would have won Angler of the Year and last tournament of the year, you're looking back and going, man, there was that one tournament that I could have.
Yeah.
I could have won one more.
It's
I could have got
like
one
that,
more
man.
check.
Even in a freaking little like club tournament or something, you get. I don't know. You always want more. You always think about that fish that got away.
You're always, I've always looked at it as when you do what you were supposed to do, you feel good about your accomplishment, but you also look at it as like, that's what I'm supposed to do. So for me, when I win a tournament, it's like I did what I was supposed to do. So the high of winning is not nearly as bad as the low of having a bad tournament, because then you just feel like a complete failure.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Well, let's get right into some stuff, man. We might as well.
You're just gonna go controversial, right?
Yeah, because if we don't, we'll start talking about deer hunting, and we'll start talking about other stuff.
The weather,
and all that crap.
Turn into old BTL.
The weather outside is the weather. You know what movie that's from? One of the greatest movies of all time, in my opinion.
No.
Yes, give me a minute.
What is it?
Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
That's right.
Oh, I never would have guessed that.
Yeah, Paul Rudd's a surfer in that, and he goes, "The weather outside is the weather." And it's like, that applies to fishing.
Yeah,
that's so true. That's what I find out what's going on is walk outside and see what's going on. Look on the horizon. So qualified for the BPT, and lo and behold, they decided to make some changes in 2025. So correct me if I'm wrong about this, but they're going from 80 anglers to 50, or is it 45?
Yeah, no, well, so they're cut. As of right now, it's still officially they're cutting to 50. I know the anglers are still having some discussions about trying to have, some things changed, whether that happens or not. But yeah, as of right now, I believe they're cutting to 50, which means because they're bringing 5 guys up from the invitationals, they're cutting the 2024 roster to the top 45 guys, or they're taking the top 35 in lifetime AOY average, and then the remaining anglers. So you'll have 45 anglers in that pool. They'll take the top 10 from the 2024 results.
Okay. So essentially, you have to finish inside the top 10.
The
minus
only
cuts
way,
of the folks that finish inside the top 10 that are having.
Yeah, well, the only way I can guarantee myself in, like without having to worry about anyone else, is to finish in the top 10 in points next year. Because if I finish in the top 10, then I'm good from the standpoint of I know I'm inside the top 10. Realistically, you know, I feel like I'm going to have to be in the top 25 because there's going to be a good percentage of guys that do not fall in that that do not fall in the top 35 AOY average that have a good year. I mean, you're talking about a very cutthroat year next year, and you're going to have guys that, I don't want to say guys are coasting, but I mean, there's some guys that I'm sure they can perform just fine with limited practice, limited research, blah, blah, blah. And they're sitting in the middle of the pack every year, and they've never been worried about getting cut. And all of a sudden now guys are on the chopping block and they're going to step their game up. So I mean, I think it's going to be cutthroat. I think it's a very good possibility next year. The 10 of the guys in the top 20 are not in the top 35 at the end, AOY average, lifetime AOY average.
It's going to
be, I mean, every guy who's fishing this can have like an AOY type year, in my opinion. Every one of these guys has had that type of performance in their career where any year they could win AOY. So yeah, the only way I can guarantee myself in is to be in the top 10. I think realistically, if I'm in the top 25, I probably get in, but that's still not an easy feat necessarily.
Yeah, you got to set your goals really, really high and not depend on that 25 spot. Is that something? Did they notify? Because you're the new class, you're the freshman class coming in. Were you notified of any of that kind of stuff, or was it just like you saw the memo?
Yeah, I mean, I had a Major League Fishing Anglers Association call set up for the Monday before that Wednesday meeting we had. And like that Monday, that call was canceled, and they basically just said, we're going to have this phone call for the rookie class coming into the MLFAA after Wednesday's meeting. So you kind of had this feeling that there were going to be some changes. But as far as I know, pretty much every angler in the field, regardless of whether they are an incoming rookie or somebody who's been around for a while, they were kind of blindsided by this. Now, I have heard, and again, I guess I can't necessarily confirm this 100%, but I do believe that there were a handful of anglers that were consulted and had to sign NDAs regarding it. So there were some anglers that provided some input on, making a move like this. I don't know what they were in favor for or against, but there were some anglers that were discussed that this was presented to.
So on the business side of things, like from the Major League Fishing organization, what would be the reason for them to make those cuts? Just kind of talk about that a little bit.
Well, I don't fully know. I actually did a video on my channel that I gave 10 reasons why I didn't think cutting from 80 to 50 was a good move. From everything from just the collecting of entry fees to, losing potential fan base, to losing, giving up talent that brings potential sponsor dollars. I mean, there's a lot of value there. And, the only real reasoning that I feel like the anglers have gotten is that the organization wants to go to a 4-day event, and based on having cameras and stuff like that in the boat, they can't do that with an 80 angler field, which, I mean, to me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because we could go to a 4-day event right now and fish all 80 anglers, and you could still break us up into group A and group B. All 80 guys fish, and then after the first 2 days, you still take the top 10 from those 40 guy groups. But their reasoning is, well, they don't have enough cameras to go around. So, it's kind of been explained as a financial, I guess, decision, but I still don't. I'm not privy to the book, so I can't necessarily say where the money's being spent. But from an outsider looking in, I feel like there's some workarounds that would definitely provide a solution to the issue. But the other reasoning is they've expressed to us that they want to make a smaller field so that they can promote the anglers better. Which would be good for the anglers in the long run, is what they're telling us. I sit here and say, well, I don't know that. I don't know that you can make a superstar out of an angler that doesn't want to be a superstar.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, the angler's still got to go out and work his butt off to get that promotion, to take advantage of the promotion that MLF may be providing to you. So yeah, you might get more TV coverage if there's less anglers. But if I sit there and don't say a word to the camera, it doesn't matter. If I get 4 days of coverage or 1 minute of coverage, in either case, I'm not making good TV at that point.
Well, yeah, if you're the guy that's like this and your head's down,
yeah.
What does it do you any good to be leading the tournament? I mean, that's on the back of your hood, hopefully, but that's about it.
I mean, we're the industry's at a point right now where you've got a lot of anglers that do just fine because they're good at selling product. And if they're good at selling product, do they necessarily need to be in that top 50 field? Meaning, if they cut the field of 50 and they're getting rid of 30 guys that have, for the most part, a good percentage of those guys are going to have a really good brand recognition. They've got a good personal brand. There's going to be some guys that are cut that are more entertaining, are better at selling product, are still very good fishermen, but because they didn't make that cut, they're gonna be kicked to the wayside. And from that standpoint, it's kind of like, I feel like they're in this issue of, they want the best anglers, but they also want the best exposure, the best anglers that will draw attention. And you can't have both. Like, as much as you want to have both, they're two separate buckets. And, I look at it and say, like, if you really want the best anglers, like, in my opinion, the way they're doing it isn't really the best way to do it. Like, I think there's better ways to figure out lifetime average. You can weight it in, certain formulas. I think I realize this would be skewed probably to my favor, but this is the 13th year I've done it. I'll take my lifetime, average and let me drop every third year like these guys are doing. And I feel like my numbers would be right in line with a lot of these guys. So, like, if you're really looking for the best talent, you might want to broaden that selection to, not just the BPT performance, but what about the Elite Series performance before that? Or what about the invitational performance? Like, there's some anglers coming in this rookie class that are phenomenal anglers. And I'm not necessarily talking about myself. I'm saying, like, a Ron Nelson. I mean, he's won AOI twice in the invitationals. And I think the last 3 or 4 years, he's been in the top 5 every year. And he turned down the BPT invite. Like, there's no question, in my opinion, Ron is one of the best anglers out there. But he's still going to be treated as the rookies, where, there's no AOI average. I mean, that's one of my biggest issues with everything that's going on, is the fact that they will not consider my first year next year as an average. They're saying, the words that were expressed to us is, you can't have an average with 1 year. Well, that's kind of baloney. An average can't be 1 year.
That's what I thought. I
assumed you had an
finish.
average of your finish.
I
Exactly.
assumed you had to finish.
Go look it up in the dictionary. It is you can have an average with a 1 number. That is your average at that point. So so from that standpoint, I'm looking at it saying, I feel like if I fall in the top 35, I should be safe, because that would be my 1 year average. I mean, but that's not going to be the case. And the frustrating part for me about this is, I feel like this is the second time I've actually qualified for BPT. If we went back to I believe it was 2020, 2021. So the year that MLF bought FLW, that was the start of the second year of the 3-year contract that the BPT anglers had. And they wanted to allow the BPT anglers to fish some of what I think were the pro circuit. It may have been the tour that first year. I don't recall what the actual title was. But we ended up having, so I think it was the COVID year, we ended up having 2 or 3 super tournaments at the end of that year. So there were a lot of BPT guys that came and fished with us. The next year, that year, the year we had the super tournaments, they told us at the start that they were going to take the top 10 from a 2-year average after the second year, which would be the third year of the BPT anglers contract. So the top 10 guys from that 2-year average would qualify for the BPT. I was tied for 10th after that first year. That third year, so the second year of that 2-year average, at the start of it, they changed it, and they said, okay, we're going to take the top 10 in points from the 2021 season or your 2-year average, whichever's higher. Well, that doesn't make much sense, because if you were in the top 10, like you're a 2-year average, if you're in the top 10 in the second year, which is, the 1 year they're looking at, you're not going to revert to an average at that point. And I realize it was done off points, but you're not going to revert to an average. And if you are at that point, that means you had a worse first year, and therefore your average is going to come down. So the average was almost mute. It was really, in my opinion, a play on numbers. And the reason they did it is because they allowed the BPT anglers that year to fish the full season. And they said those anglers should have the right to qualify for back for the BPT if they got cut that year. So they wanted those anglers to have the right to qualify after one season. The issue I have with this is, in my opinion, when they did that, they set a precedence. And by setting that precedence with what's going on now, I should be able to use my 1-year average or fall back on multi-year average, which I won't have, but they should allow me to have my 1-year average, just like they allowed those BPT anglers to have a 1-year average. I don't know if any of that made sense to you or not, but basically they're just completely doing the opposite of what they did to the pro circuit anglers. So I finished like 7th in my 2-year combined average, but because I didn't have a good second year, my average wasn't good enough to pull me up, because I only had a 10th place finish that first year.
I'm just as confused as I was before. But I think it's at this point, a lot of that credibility is gone of what they go back on and how they determine their anglers' field. They have a reasoning behind everything, but it just seems like it's convoluted. It changes constantly, right? But let's not forget, like, not so long ago, you were fishing a top level tour.
Yeah.
It was called the FLW Tour, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people forgot about that. Stefan did fish the top level tour and then had to go fish AAA. And you qualified for the FLW Tour, I'm assuming, right?
Technically, no. Technically, I just paid to get in, but it was a year where they couldn't fill my first year was 2010, so there was like the financial crisis was going on, so they had lots and lots of openings. Yeah, and I mean, at that point, I don't even know what the qualification process was. I think it was basically you could just get in anyways if you wanted to, if there were openings. And in that year, that was the year they actually were very close to going under. There's been a couple of years like that, I guess, but yeah. So I mean, it is one of those issues where I feel like they're giving. All of the changing that's taking place is doing no good to the fan base, it's really, in my opinion, destroying the fan base more than the anglers. I think most of the anglers are like, tell us where to show up, tell us what the rules are, and we'll fish to meet those rules. Like, you want me to catch a 15 incher and 15 inchers only? That's what I'll do. Like that. My competitive nature is I'll just show up, tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it. The problem is nobody can follow along with this. So by changing around, the fans that were like, this is a cool format, it's like you don't know when you tune in what's going to happen at that tournament. Are we doing a 2-pound average? Is it total fish? Is it a 5 fish? And I just feel like I feel like the fans are kind of getting sick of it. And I think there's going to have to be some things done now to kind of win those fans back.
Yeah, I think numbers. I know analytics are a huge part of Major League Fishing. I mean, these guys are, Bassmaster too, whatever. That's just the way the world works. But to me, a quick pivot from year to year to make different changes and tweaks to try to boost fan interaction and try to boost social media hits and all that kind of stuff. When you're changing, like basically, I'm reiterating what you just said. If you change it every year, every other year, you really don't have, nobody has a place to snuggle up to settle into, to understand the whole format. It's already confusing enough with all of the different, like the 6-day format. It's really spread out. That's the thing that I struggled with in the beginning, is trying to figure out what, group A, group B, and then what happens. And then there's the knockout round, and then these guys get together and fish. And it's really drawn out, where, a traditional format is, you fish 2 days and they make a cut, and then, 50 fish the third day, and then boom, it's top 10 or top 12 on the final day, or in the invitationals, it's a 3-day deal, or the Toyota series. It's pretty cut and dry. But the BPT format is spread out. So it's hard. Americans have a short attention span. It's hard for us to stay with something that is spread out so far. I mean, I watch it because I'm driving in my mail truck, I'll listen to it and stuff. But even then, I can't remember. It's hard for me to remember who's fishing this day and then who's fishing tomorrow. And sometimes I flip it on, I'm expecting to see so-and-so out there, and oh crap, they fished yesterday and they got the day off today and they're fishing tomorrow. But I think, put all that aside, having a format, whatever it is, 5 fish or 2-pound catch, weigh, and release, all fish count, keeping it steady for just 3 seasons, just so people know what they're watching. I think that would be a big step in the right direction. But having said that, I also understand that it is an analytics thing, and it's they're watching the data, they're watching the numbers, and they're trying to make real-time adjustments. But I just think having something stable, you turn it on, what you're watching, and you can kind of get into it. I think that would be a huge.
Well, I think that in 2025, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, that's the change. They're not going to record the first, or you're not going to be live the first couple of days, right?
Yeah. Well, in 2024, we're not going to be live.
Okay, so they're starting in 24. So you only have 4 days of coverage then?
Yeah.
Okay, and you're only fishing 1 or 3, potentially 3 out of those 4 days, right?
Yeah. So well, I mean, you're only guaranteed 2 days, right? So they're going to split up the 80 anglers for next year. They're going to split the 80 anglers into 2 groups of 40. And then they changed it where the top 10 now are moving forward. It had been the top 20 were moving forward, but it's just the top 10 now. I think a lot of it goes back to, the sport of bass fishing. Tournament bass fishing has been around for a long time now. But when you look at the rules of the sport, it really hasn't changed, right? It's always been pretty much a 5 fish type deal, total weight, just kind of depended how many days you were fishing. So the anglers are ingrained with that set of rules. I don't necessarily disagree that there's, I think there's plenty of space for a new format. The problem is, because those fans are so ingrained with what traditional tournaments look like, if you change it every year, it just was more confusing because you know it's going to take a while just to convert those fans over to understanding what all the rules are. But if you change it every year, it just becomes that much more confusing to the point where I feel like a lot of fans are just like, whatever, I'm going back to the old style because I understand it. And yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some damage control that needs to happen. Now, I don't necessarily want to come across as like bashing the organization. I feel like there are some good things. I think they have to really focus on a few things, and if they can grow, and maybe this 50-man field, if you can make that could be a really good place for an angler to be. But I really feel like as a whole, the sport, which I have a hard time calling it a sport because I truly believe tournament fishing is a marketing platform. But the marketing platform of tournament fishing it's eroding away. I mean, it's just not as powerful as it used to be. So whether you're Major League Fishing or Bassmaster or NPFL or whatever tournament organization you are, the sponsor dollars are slipping away, in my opinion, because the marketing platform is no longer as strong as it used to be. It's kind of like you look at radio. Radio is nowhere near as good as it used to be. TV is nowhere near as good as it used to be. There's a progression in marketing from one industry or type of marketing platform to another one. And tournaments were one of the main ways to market product. And it's no longer that only way to market products. So, I think the biggest hurdle these organizations have is to figure out how to make it a valuable marketing platform. If that can be decided and figured out, I think one or both of the organizations could really crush it. But right now, I don't think that's been figured out.
Here's a let me read this comment real quick. This is from Joey. She owns Crock Gator Bait Company. She says same thing in the tackle industry. We pay for anglers and we pay social media influencers. I can say without a doubt that the anglers push and sell more product for her, hands down. And that's an interesting topic. I mean, it kind of ties into the Jacob Fouts video, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. But what's your thoughts on that? Do you think there's only so many slices of the pie, right? You've got a lot of YouTube channels have came out in the last couple of years. Now, a lot of professional fishermen have started channels because that's the way that things are going. Their companies that they work for are wanting them to put themselves out there, and they're wanting to be on those platforms and be recognized. But there's also a lot of just not tournament fishermen that have successful YouTube channels, and they're kind of, I don't know, they're directly competing for those sponsorship dollars, and a lot of, because I don't know if you call it sponsorship dollars, but marketing dollars. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. There's definitely a shift. There's been a shift, a transformation, and I don't know if it's still going one way or the other, or if it's kind of found a happy medium somewhere. But you had tournament fishermen forever, and then here comes these YouTuber guys, and they're starting to get a piece of the pie, and it's getting bigger and bigger, and it's growing. So there's kind of a battle going on, in my eyes. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know that I consider it a battle per se. I really, I had a conversation with Jacob Wheeler not too long ago, and he actually said it on Bass Talk Live as well. But I thought it was a really valuable comment, and it really came down to, if he were a company, he would not invest marketing dollars into anyone, whether they're an influencer or they're a tournament angler or whoever, if that individual was not investing in themselves. And, really what that means is that individual putting the effort forward to try to grow their personal brand? Because the one thing I've really learned in doing YouTube, and wish I had started doing YouTube much earlier to really figure this out for myself, is how valuable your personal brand is. If you can get to the point where you can show value to companies, it gives the that brand, that angler, that person more leverage with respect to negotiating deals, more leverage with respect to the direction you want to take your marketing, whether that is, in the form of YouTube videos, maybe social media. It gives the angler more control over their own like business. And that to me is a huge factor for me in making me a happier person. And if I'm a happier person and I'm enjoying more of what I'm doing, I'm going to continue to invest in myself and building my personal brand. So I guess the way I look at it, and having a tackle company right now, and we're talking about potentially reaching out to some people, it doesn't really matter what those people do, whether it's a tournament angler or influencer. It's really a matter of how good is their personal brand, and are they trying to grow their personal brand? Because if they're investing in themselves, they're going to continue to grow, and they'll figure out ways to reach potential buyers or markets, and promote the products that they want to promote, whether that's a sponsor product or a product that they sell out of their garage. I mean, it's just one of those things where I think if you look at the individuals that are successful right now, whether they're influencers, strictly influencers, or, tournament fishermen, and I consider myself a tournament fisherman, even though most people would consider myself a social influencer at this point. The reality is the guys that are doing the best right now are people that are really putting the time in. I mean, it's a tough industry, but if you're willing to put the time in, there is a lot of, I'm not going to say there's like a ton of money to make, but there's a ton of different avenues to generate. There's a bunch of different revenue streams that can be established. And as a tournament angler, those revenue streams are what really allow me to pursue what I want to do, which is tournament fish.
Yeah, well said, man. Well said. I agree with that 100%. Geez,
there's so many paths that we could run down. You talk about the creating your own brand, and you can name probably 40 anglers on the BPT currently that don't have their own brand, right? They're going out there, they're fishing. They got decent sponsors. They're doing okay. They're not doing great, but then there's probably another 40 anglers that have a good social media following. What I got wrote down here is 30 anglers that are going to be displaced next year. Better figure out what the heck they're going to do next year when tournaments not their thing, because there's not a home for them at this point in time, right? Like we don't have a home for 30 anglers that are going to be displaced in 12 months.
Yeah. And yeah. And so this is, you mentioned Jacob Fouts earlier, and I don't know Jacob at all, but I do relate to him with respect to like the first like 7 or 8 years on tour. For me, it was, I want to fish. I want to let my fishing do the talking for me, and have the sponsors come to me if I fish well enough. If you're not winning tournaments, they're probably not coming to knock on your door. I mean, it's just, that's, in my opinion, that's my experience with that. So, I've spent a lot of time trying to really grow my personal brand, and I think that's one reason I'm really not like bent out of shape with respect to all of the stuff going on with Major League Fishing. If I get cut, I get cut. Like I'll keep trying to do whatever I can do to make a living in this. I'll take I feel confident I can make it, but the reality is there is a strong probability that I could get cut. And at that point, it's like, okay, well, what direction do I want to go? But I have a lot of comfort with respect to the position I've put myself in, because I've busted my butt for years now to be in this position where if that falls through, I can still make a living fishing. I got to figure out some new ways to probably do it. but I'm not going to be completely out of a job. I think there's a lot of anglers that are going to be out of a job. And that's the scary part. And the issue I have with that is I don't fault them. I don't think they've done anything wrong. The rules to play have said as long as you're in the top 72 out of 80 guys, you have a place. So these people, these anglers have fished well enough to not worry about getting cut. And all of a sudden now, because the rules changed, they could lose their job. Now, to me, every angler out there has the choice to choose the path that they want to do. For the first 7 or 8 years of my career, I wanted to be a tournament fisherman. That was it. That's what I did. And if you're good enough to continue to qualify and make it, I don't think you should necessarily be cut because all of a sudden the rules changed where you got to be in the top, basically the top half of the field. So I do really feel for all of the anglers, there's not that many that are 100% locked in for that top 50 field. I just feel much more comfortable with the position that I'm in based on the brand that I've built, which I still don't think is that strong when you compare it to a lot of these guys, but I'm in a position where I'm not going to be thinking about getting a desk job again.
Yeah. Well,
are you sure? I mean, sounds really appealing.
No, I did that for 12 years, corporate financial world, and I am not going back to that.
The cheese mafia has gotten out of control over the
milk industry,
milk
dairy,
or
wasn't
cheese,
it?
dairy, yeah.
Yeah, it was the dairy markets I did for a few years.
Hey, Joey's got a good question here. Matt, does a part of you believe that MLF is sincerely trying to get it right so they can get to a place where they stop moving the goalposts?
Yeah, kind of what we just talked about. And that
do you think they're trying to do the right thing here, or are they just chasing their tail right now?
I don't necessarily think that the individuals in power of MLF are doing anything to not try to move the organization forward. I am a little concerned that they're getting some outside direction from some consulting firms that are pushing this cut to 50 anglers that may not be familiar with the fishing industry, and they're kind of trying to follow formats that have worked for them, whether it's in the PBR or whatever other, I think they were involved with UCF and some other sports. So I am a little concerned that and again, I could be way off base here. They could be the best business fishing consulting firm ever. I just feel like if you're not, in my experience, if you're not fully in the fishing industry, you don't fully understand it, which is probably what you could say about most industries. So no, I don't think the leaders in charge of MLF are trying to do anything to pull the organization down. I think they're trying to make decisions that'll put them in a good place. Now, having said that, I do also think there's potentially, and I don't want to create a stir. This is just my opinion, but based on everything that's going on, I do think there's potentially some positioning for a merger down the road, meaning, we're making some cuts, doing whatever to make it easier to merge.
You sound like you lived in the corporate world at one point in your life. I mean,
well, I don't think it's crazy to look at the moves that are being made to say, hey, whether they're trying to get that done or not, it could just be, hey, we need to make these moves because it would in 2 years make it easier if that comes down the road and we want to pursue that option. I just feel like, again, going back to how we started this whole conversation, man, I think a lot of what's being told to the anglers right now as to why these moves are being done, I think there's solutions, workarounds, like that would probably get to the same result and you'd be able to maintain an 80-person field. But again, I'm not privy to the information that's going on. I don't know exactly what the end goal is with all of this. And without knowing, it's just a matter of, kind of riding the wave and seeing where we get to.
So we can talk about the unknown for probably another 2 to 3 hours, but let's talk about what you're most excited about moving over to the BPT.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, I'm excited about additional exposure. I'm excited about fishing against a lot of the guys that I've fished against in the past that I haven't seen in a while. I'm excited to be considered fishing at the top level of the game. I think there's a lot better payout, even with the cuts in payout. There's still a lot better payout than what I was fishing for in the invitationals. Um, and I'm excited to show up and fish against, the guys that are considered the best. I mean, to beat the best, to be the best, you want to beat the best. So I'm excited to get there.
Anything about the format? I mean, I had wrote down like what the biggest change has got to be. If you're in the top 10, you practiced. I don't know. Say practice starts on Monday. You're not fishing on the final day for 9 more days.
Yeah, it's
right?
It's
That's a long week.
almost 2 weeks with practice. Yeah, with travel and stuff, it is 2 weeks, which is, I mean, kind of a bummer. I mean, because my travel to several of these events are 2-day drives. So,
Right.
You're adding 4 days of travel time on top of your 3 days of practice and then 6-day tournament. So if I
That's
had my
added
choice,
expenses
I
too,
wouldn't
right?
want to be. What was that?
That's added expenses too, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's additional expenses, there's time away from family, there's, it's if I could get rid of those off days, I definitely would do that. I'm not a huge fan of sitting around twiddling my thumbs and not being able to fish while I'm on one of the best lakes in the country. Like, I'll make it work. I'll probably film videos and stuff like that while I'm doing it. But yeah, I think that's one of the issues that it sounds like the anglers who have fished for a while have had, that they want to go back to a 4-day tournament.
Well, there's something to be said about being on the water. I mean, we don't get a lot of opportunity to be on the water for 4 days in a row, but even having 1 day off or 2 days off, things change in those days, right?
Oh yeah.
12
Yeah.
hours not being on the water in the
Especially in the
daylight.
spring,
Yeah, things are
Yeah.
changing. The fish are moving.
I mean,
and
you
you
could
miss the whole wave of fish.
Yeah, you could go from your couple of days of practice could be very much straight pre-spawn to like full-blown spawn event by the time like the second half of the tournament rolls around,
Right.
which excites me. Like I think I've pre-practiced 3 times in my life just based on it not making financial sense to me. For me to drive to South Carolina to practice for 2 days means I'm gone for almost a week, which means my expenses are, over, probably $2,000 at that point. And, you're already in for $7,500 trying to win a $10,000 check. Putting another $2,000 down the pre-practice doesn't make sense to me. So I've always been an angler that pretty much shows up. And the reality is I actually do a lot less prep work than I've ever done. Every year I feel like I do less, and I think that's just more of me being comfortable with different types of water and being more familiar with it. But I really like getting to the lake and figuring it out, like, while it's going down on the water. And I do want to say that I think that the MLF format of every fish counts kind of lends to that a little bit better. So I'm excited. I've also done, we've got like one of the biggest upper Midwest tournament circuits called Classic Bass. It's pretty much based out of Minnesota, but they are catch weigh release. So I've done a handful of those. So I've got some experience fishing that format. I did get to fish a BPT event. Was it 2 years ago? I finished second at the St. Lawrence River, and that qualified me to fish the BPT event. And that was at St. Clair, and I, made the day 5 cut there. So like, I feel confident fishing the format. It is, I think one of the disconnects that, since I have fished some, that the anglers and the fans have is, like, from an angler standpoint, that format is, it's a blast. 'Cause it's like, where you're at, everything is constantly moving. and it is a stressful day on the water. Versus 5 fish, you go out and you could have a good bag, and you've got a good bag at that point, right? You might have it by 9 o'clock in the morning, and you go practice in the rest of the day or whatever. And in this format, there's like no let up. And from that standpoint, it's really fun. The problem from a fan standpoint is, if I'm fishing and battling with 5 other guys for the last check, it's a blast, right? Or the cut line, because it matters to me, but to a fan, they're like, he's fishing for 40th place. Like, that's not what they're watching.
Well, there's where the drama's at, right? It's the cut line.
Yeah.
Is the drama. It's not the guy that's winning the tournament, because he may be blowing it out by 15 pounds. It's where's the guy that is going to make a check.
That's what MLF told us too, with respect to the viewing numbers. One of the reasons they went back to it is because the viewing numbers were not as strong, because they could see people like tuning off. If somebody had a really good lead, it's a lot harder to pick up that lead on a 5-fish derby than it is. You could be down by 10 pounds in every fish counts, but you hit one little hot stretch and catch 3 good ones in a row, and you're right in the mix. Like there is more, I think there's more excitement there. That from my perspective, the problem with the excitement is there's like really specific points of excitement, right? Whether that's on a specific cut line or it's for first place. But a lot of it only really exists like on the last day or on those cut days. So, as much as you want to create excitement on day 1 of each group's fishing, it doesn't mean much really until the end of day 2 for those groups. So, I think that's part of the reason too, just to cut it down to 4 days, where you can try to create some excitement level at all of those different points.
I like lines in, in the morning, you go to your spot, your lines in, and at the end of the day, your lines out. There's no to and from. You don't have to worry so much about the weather. You get to fish the whole time. I like, and Jordan Lee was on, he's been on a couple things, but he was BPT guy, and he switched back over to the leads. And that's one thing that he was talking about, how he's going to have to, he's been so used to just, you get to fish the whole time. Now he's going to have to figure in run time and all the variables that come with that. Your battery's not, your motor not firing up after you've been sitting for a while. Just all the things that come along with that.
If you spin a hub or throw an ear off of a fry, your day's not done. You can still go out. You just go out and fish.
You just go under the bridge and you win the classic,
right? But you don't have to run back in.
True.
Well, but there's one problem with that, and that's like, how does Matt Stefan's wife get any business if you're not beating yourself to death on the way back in?
Dude, I'll tell you, like, when I qualified for that St. Clair event, it was rough. And I remember thinking, this is the great, like, they let us trailer. And I got the trailer to where I was probably like a mile and a half from my fishing spot. And, you get to fish the entire time. You don't have to make that big run back and go, man, I'm only 5 miles away, but it's going to take me 2 hours to get there because it's 6-footers or blah, blah, blah. And like, I love that. Same thing happened. We fished this format too. We had the FLW title championship in Sturgeon Bay, and it was a total weight format that year. And I had a good tournament, but I feel like I should have won that event. That's a place I'm very familiar with, and I had a phenomenal game plan, and I made one bad call, and it screwed me up. But the point being, like, that was another one where I was making a really long run, and it was rough on the bay, and like, it just was like, all right, I'll take my time. The whistle ended, and I think it took me like 2 hours to get back, but I just, basically idled all the way back in. And I was like, this is fantastic. I'm not beating the boat up or anything.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining. Plus my back, I do feel like all the years of doing it, my lower back, even though I'm married to a chiropractor, my lower back has given me some problems the last couple of years. And the rougher the water, the more pain it is. So like, I'm not necessarily gonna miss those long runs in rough water, racing to get back to check in or something like that.
Well, if you like your boat, or if you have to buy your boat, it's probably a little bit better to not push it to the breaking point, because I'm pretty sure on all the big water up north, your 21-foot bass boat is not made to run that water.
No boat. No, you gotta go buy a Coast Guard cutter if you want to cut through that stuff.
Yeah,
sometimes.
right. But you got to experience the Lake of the Ozarks. That's a pretty rowdy lake too.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
it wasn't even
coming
summer
back. Yeah, that the final day of that event, there was a big poker run going on, and I mean, it was what was it, like 85 degrees? It was the first really hot weekend day in May, and it was yeah, dude, it was miserable. I mean, I had, I don't know, 17 or 18 pounds. I don't remember what I had that final day, but it was a good bag. But I was way up the river. I left like 2 hours early because of that. And it's like, man, I would have loved to have fished for 2 more hours. And I mean, I think there's a lot of really good things, about the format. I mean, I also love the fact that the catch, weigh, release, I think from a conservation standpoint, which I don't think gets probably talked about enough within our sport. I mean, I think that's a great thing for the fishery. Yeah,
you're not taking a smallmouth off of a bed that's 40 miles offshore or whatever back to the marina and letting it go right there. I mean, that's a virgin fish. That fish has never seen a human before, and you carted it now how many miles from its home, and it's never going to
get and you're not going to put that fish through a pounding, or if you're catching fish, it doesn't matter the species, you're catching them out of super deep water, throwing them in a live well is not necessarily the best thing for that fish, right? But you catch them, weigh them, let them go back down to the depths they were at, and they'll be a lot better off than riding in my live well all day long.
I think the weigh-in is the con on the BPT. Not having a weigh-in, not coming across the stage. I think that's something that you're going to miss, but it is what it is. To me, as a tournament fisherman, that would be one of the things that I would really miss. The interaction, the excitement, then sitting in the bag line, looking at everybody's bag, talking and chatting it up, and all the stuff that happens.
Assuming you got a good bag. When you don't have a good bag, that's like the worst thing ever.
I think though that you said it earlier though, like, you fished that format before. Most of us average Joes haven't fished that format, so it's really hard for us to relate to fishing a every fish counts or even a catch, weigh, release format.
I think it'd be a blast.
Oh, I would absolutely love it.
Yeah,
because I know what you got, you know what I got. It's just like fishing in a boat, like you and I going out and having a friendly competitive day.
It's the best. It's a better TV product as far as like you said, the drama, especially on those cut days and the final days. I mean, it's like there's usually like 5 or 6 or 7 people that one fish could make a huge difference. And it's just it's so intense, and it usually never disappoints. It's kind of like that football game where the teams are really close and it comes down to a field goal, right? With 30 seconds left or something. Usually almost always have that drama built in. So that's definitely a plus in my opinion.
And even if somebody is running away with the win, there's still usually some drama to be made over like second place or third place, where the guys are going back and forth. But I agree with you completely. Like from a fan perspective and an angler perspective, knowing exactly what each person has is helpful. That's like one of my issues with watching like live coverage right now, or you watch we used to have
like bass
weights
track
that were generated, and you have bass track. Dude, those things are so off. Like, I mean, the anglers, there's some anglers that will purposely throw their weights off. There's other anglers that'll try to, nail it on the dot. And it's like, it just, come weigh-in time, you can basically throw those numbers out. So it doesn't do you much good anyways. But if you know exactly where people are at, so it's like, somebody's 2 pounds, 3 ounces behind, and you see a guy catch it and you're like, that looks like a 2 1/4 pounder. I mean, there's a lot of excitement just because you know where people are at. So I mean, again, like what I said earlier, I think the sport is very much capable of handling a different type of format. I think it's more about, you got to stick with it. You got to allow a fan base that's so used to a traditional 5-fish format. you got to give them enough time to transition to your format. And the more you change the rules, the harder it is for those fans to learn something they're already unfamiliar with.
You got like Bass Track. If you got the locals are watching Bass Track and Jason Christie's got 24 pounds, they're going to try to go find. They're going to go try to find these anglers. But if
you can see their GPS is
I know,
accurate.
I know,
you can see where
I know,
they're at.
but still, if that Bass Track says 0, that angler's not drawing any attention. But if it lights up, you're going to find that pin and you're going to go try to find them just so you can get on that spot for your club tournament that's coming up that Sunday.
I hate Bass Tracks. Like, I've been to a couple classics, and the one was it Hank Cherry when he blew the one out. It's like, why even show up on Sunday? Like, you as a fan, you come for the weigh-in, right? Like,
I think it's shut off at noon or something.
Shut it off. I don't want to know. I stopped watching so I could be surprised. But you hear all the chatter. It's like going to the tournament and you hear all the dock talk. You heard all the chatter. You knew who was leading, and he had, a sizable lead where nobody could catch him. It was on Bass Tracks. It wasn't a Jordan Lee Classic where, there was no camera, nobody keeping track of him.
But with every fish counts, that drama is consistent throughout to the very end of the tournament.
Right.
Because, you're just racking up the fish there. So.
Right.
I agree with you. I would rather see exact weights, where like they've got a scale, like catch, weigh, release. I would rather know the exact weights, or don't tell me anything. No. Let me watch the weigh-in and be blown away that, somebody caught what they did.
Well, that's the old school of me, right? Like, that's the Hank Parker winning a classic and Ray Scott up there screaming at him. That's the fun part. So,
so announcement real quick. We are going to be doing a giveaway here in a little bit, and there's a lot of new faces on here. The way we do our giveaway is sometime during the stream, I'll make a reference to Sasquatch. When you hear that word, guess the number between 1 and 200. Whoever guesses the number that I got written down here is going to win a $25 gift card with Baitworks. So keep your ears peeled. I wanted to kind of go back just a little bit, and we kind of touched on. You talked about how things may be setting up for a merger. I mean, it's total speculation, right? Nobody really knows.
Yeah.
But what would make? I think when Major League Fishing very first started, why they drew a lot of anglers over was the hopes of being able to fish as a professional without paying an entry fee. And things have changed since then. But what do you think would have to happen down the road for that to actually be something that's viable, something that makes sense, and something that can actually sustain a pro's career? I mean, something's missing there. What would it take to make that happen?
I mean, I unfortunately, I don't think it has anything to really do with the anglers. I think it's purely business at that point, and it has to be. The synergies between the two companies have to be strong enough to create, a profitable endeavor to have them do it. I think if you look at both organizations, there's probably things that both organizations would like to have from each other. And the question is it easier just to merge, or is it easier to try to develop whatever it is that you're missing? And I again, without seeing the books, I couldn't tell you what type of money is being spent on this stuff, but I would like to think that the route of merging would bring everyone together, like all the fans, everyone's in one place at that point. Yeah, there may be some diehard MLF fans or diehard Bassmaster fans that are just like, I can't believe you're merging with them. But the reality is, I think, if there's only one main source for bass fishing, that's where everyone's going to go. So, I think the other question is it that much more profitable for the companies to merge? Meaning, just because, if each company's getting $10,000 from company A, if you merge, does that mean you get $20,000 now, or does it mean you get $10,000? Like, I don't know what would happen from a sponsor standpoint for those organizations, but I would like to think that they could probably generate additional sponsor dollars from where they're at from those companies. Because if I'm company A and I'm giving two companies $10,000 each, and now they merged, maybe I'm happy giving them 15,000 instead of 20,000, right?
Mhm.
So it's kind of a win-win for everybody. But again, it has to make sense for that company to give them $15,000 too. They have to see a return on it, and they may look at it and say, well, I'm not going to get, it's now one company, I'm going to get less return because I had two companies before. So there's a whole bunch of things to look at. From an angler perspective, I think it needs to happen if we want to get to the place where we do have no entry fees, high dollar tournaments. Like I just think, to draw the dollars to that organization to really have high dollar payouts and low entry fees or no entry fees, you got to have a really strong product. And I think you got to be the primary product within that marketplace. Like I just, you look at other sports and pretty much everyone has a top level, one primary organization. There's other ones that come and go and they try and it just doesn't happen. But if you have one main organization within that sport, they're the ones that seem to really thrive. And right now I feel like we're in a position where there's too much competition between organizations, and it's almost like we're taking our eye off the big picture. It's more like, how do we one up the other organization? And the reality is that's not what they should be doing. They should be figuring out how to take it to the next level.
Well, adding or combining the two, I mean, you have a great feeder system on the MLF FLW side, right? Like with the grassroots all the way up, and
high school, college, BFL,
yeah,
all up,
and Bass used to have that with the weekend series. That's kind of been eliminated, I believe.
Yep.
I think if you're going to have the merger, our buddy Ron said it the other day. I think it was, create the elite 150 or whatever 150, the top 150 anglers. But you have to have that ultimate feeder system to pay for anglers in that top, whether it's 180, 150, whatever that is, to pay for their entry fees, their funds. There has to be a portion of that money from your feeder system going to your top level anglers. Whether it's a 80% payout in your AAA events and a 50% payout in your regional events, and then
well, if sponsorship dollars weren't spread out,
you got less cuts of
like
the
you
pie.
said, there'll be a little bit more in there. I'd like to see it, if this is hypothetical, but I think if it ever did happen, I think it'd be cool to have a hybrid. Have some 5 fish, some every fish counts, even like a mega bucks where you got the championship day, you got 10 holes or 6 holes or whatever. And then because they've done, Bass has done that format with the Texas, I can't remember what it was called, but Lake Fork, where they catch, weigh, and release that. So it's possible on both sides. Of course this is hypothetical if they.
I mean, when you really look at it, between the two organizations, if you were to combine them, I mean, they've got every level covered, but it's like one organization may be stronger for this level, or the other organization stronger at this level. But if you combined them, I would like to think every level would be just stacked, because there is no other choice, right? So like, if you're talking about, you no longer have even the grassroots in terms of like the federation and the nation and all that. I mean, it would be one club level thing. Then you go up to the AAA level, and you probably, I would think, would get rid of the Opens or the Toyotas or the invitationals, and you make one monster league out of it, right? And you're talking about, those fields would be waiting list for years, I feel like, to potentially get into that. Or you could open it up even bigger. And, if they are that heavily waitlisted, maybe you keep the Toyotas and you do a big championship like you've got, and then you've got your qualifying EQ type stuff where you take the invitationals and merge them with the Opens. But you're talking about having, a ton of anglers that are filling those fields. You would not have to worry about fall off by the end of the year. I wouldn't think. I really feel like you could be stacked all the way up. The question really comes down to, is it worth either one buying the other, or the expenses of merging when maybe you could just create it on your own? I mean, and put the dollars forward to do that.
Well, you know, the one thing that we haven't talked about is payout, and the payout hasn't changed in years, yet the entry fee continues to go up every single year.
Yeah, I would argue that I would say payouts have gone down.
Yeah, right.
And entry fees have gone up.
Right.
So in my 13 years, I have never had 1 year where payouts actually increased. And I would say probably in half those years, they've taken some away. They may on paper look like they increased a little, but it's because entry fees increased even more.
Right.
So like when I started, it was $4,000 in entry fee, and now I think the invitationals are I think it is just 5,000 now, but I mean, that's a 20% increase in entry fees, and the payouts are drastically worse.
That's how much the invitationals were, $5,000.
Yeah, they were $5,000. I mean, the BPT, you had that comment up there saying, you know, that there's no entry fees. I mean, that's one of my, it's funny, like something nobody's talking about is my biggest concern, or the biggest issue I have with the change from last year and the BPT to this year, is the fact that they took away 40 payout spots. You know, it was last year, you could come in last place, 80th place in every event, and you got like, I think it was a check for $3,700. So the entry fees, they're $40,000 for the 7 events. So I mean, I think it's like $5,700 a tournament, but you were guaranteed to win back like $3,700. Don't quote me on that, but I think if you came in last place in every event, the most you would have lost out of that 40,000 in entry fees was like 13 or 14 grand. So it like from a risk standpoint, it was not that bad. So even though the entry fees were high, you were guaranteed to get back a good amount. This year, they've taken away the bottom 40 spots. So if you come in 40th, you get a check for 10 grand. If you come in 41st, you go home with zero. So, you know, the potential risk is $40,000 in entry fees.
Now they increased all the other payouts, right?
No, nothing went up. Nothing.
So in 2023,
I like your sarcasm.
Sorry. In 2023, what did 40th place get? Did they get 10 grand?
Yeah, I believe it was 10 grand.
Okay.
And then I
didn't realize that.
Yeah. So it you know, I don't ever really like to look at payouts and say, you know, well, if I come in last place, I'm guaranteed money. Like I'm not necessarily one that says you should win anything for last place, but it does really lessen the burden of being a professional angler when you know your out-of-pocket expense in entry fees is going to be 13 or 14 grand versus, man, if you have a disaster year and don't cash, you're out 40 grand. Like,
yeah,
there's a big difference there in terms of your take-home pay at the end of the year. That's a lot of sponsor dollars that you got to try to recoup.
Yeah, so you're paying, you know, like 2023, you're paying $5,600, so they can invest that money in a money market or whatever they're doing with it, make money off of it, and then they're giving you $3,700 back. But so essentially, your entry fee is $3,700 less. So what he's saying is that's gone now. That's a huge.
Yeah, that's gone, and nobody's really talking about that, which is, you know, there's I guess bigger issues at hand still, but that is a, you know, you're going to have guys that get cut this year and their career's over, and they're getting kicked out, being significantly in debt from a bad year on top of it.
Holy cow!
Well, you don't sign up to fish tournaments because the payouts look good, right? You sign up for tournaments because it's something that you love to do, and it's a way to advertise your brand.
I mean, I mean, it depends how you look at it. I mean, I look at it now. I mean, I'll tell you this, like if we looked at it simply as a financial investment, it's a terrible investment. For most of us now, it is a way for us to build our brand, right? So like if I look at tournaments now as something that, as much as I love to do them, I'm not necessarily, I could fish local tournaments. I made a lot. I made a lot of money fishing local tournaments, right?
Yeah, you can. You definitely can.
So from the standpoint of tournaments right now, it's more of like a piece of the puzzle in the business. So, you know, for me, because YouTube is kind of the glue that brings everything together, I am concerned that if I didn't fish tournaments, that I would potentially lose credibility. And my YouTube channel is primarily based on education. You know, so from the standpoint of being an instructor, I like to be able to say I'm on the BPT. I think that qualifies me as an expert within the bass fishing world, right?
I would agree.
So, you know, I do think that there's credibility from that standpoint. If you you know, go out and you have a good year, there is a lot of additional places for exposure to help promote sponsors and to, you know, to generate more brand awareness. Like, tournaments are a big part of it, but I will tell you that there are a lot of anglers right now questioning how important are those tournaments in terms of that building the brand, right? Because tournaments right now are kind of a major expense that you're really trying to break even. You're getting these sponsor dollars to fish the tournaments, or partially to fish the tournaments, you know, but you got to go win it all back. And that's becoming tougher and tougher to do because the payouts are decreasing, the entry fees are increasing. And, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, there is a point probably where you can build a personal brand that's big enough and you should be able to obtain the same sponsor dollars, whether or not you fish tournaments at all. I don't know what that number is, but it is something that I think is potentially doable out there.
Yeah, I think on the YouTube aspect, I 100% agree with what you said about the street cred and being a professional fisherman. There's guys that do lure descriptions and they come out and they talk about new products, and you see very, very, very little of them on the water. And then there's guys that talk about stuff, but they have a lot of fishing content where they're actually out there catching fish on the baits that they're talking about. So that brings credibility right there. And then there's people who are like yourself, who have reached the highest pinnacle of the sport. They're talking about the baits. They're catching fish on the baits in a tournament scenario. And those people are spending a lot more time on the water than the average Joe. You know, there's somebody that just gets fish once a week. They're learning at a slower pace than somebody that's fishing 4 or 5 days a week. You know, they're making a lot of tweaks, a lot of adjustments, and they're really dialing stuff in. So, you know, you can learn, you can trust. I don't want to say trust, but there is more credibility that goes along with somebody that's actually trying to teach you something or show you something, and not just trying to shove it down your throat. I mean, there's certain ways to promote things, and there's certain ways to show people things.
And I think a part of that is probably just me personally. Like, for me to do what I do, I want to feel like I'm justified doing what I do. Like, it kind of gives me the confidence to go and do it. 'Cause I'm not the type to want the attention. Like, I realize, you know, I do YouTube and daily videos and all that, but, you know, like I said, the first 7-8 years on tour, I just wanted to be that guy that fished. That is kind of what I want to do. But what I've recognized is, to make it in the sport, I needed to step outside of that shell and kind of find a different avenue.
Yeah, there's something to what Living Missouri Outdoors has said. He said Travis Manson program, guide fish, kind of cherry pick the tournaments. I mean, a lot of guys do that. You know, you look at these major lakes, Kentucky Lake's starting to come back, but Lake of the Ozarks, there's guys that live on Lake of the Ozarks that just tournament fish, and they make $60,000-$70,000 a year. They supplement their normal job through tournament fishing. There's no need,
and they're not traveling. They're still sleeping on their own bed. And hell, the Wednesday nighter they're making money off.
Right. And they don't have a YouTube channel. They're not trying to promote. They're not building a brand. They already have their job. Their job is selling insurance to all the pleasure boaters down there. And they're supplementing their income with a side hustle for $50,000 a year doing what they like. They're not worried about getting a brand. And doing that, you're going to get local sponsors regardless. So there's many ways to make a living.
Dude, there is no right or wrong way to make a living in the fishing industry. I think more than anything, it just comes down to how bad do you want it? Like, if you want it, you can figure out how to do it. And there's a lot of guys, like you're saying, that there are, for every guy fishing at the professional level, there are probably 10 of them at the local level that are good enough to do it. They just, for whatever reason, don't do it. They may not want to do it. They may not be able to afford it, whatever it is. That just, there's a lot of anglers out there that can compete at that level. And there's a lot of anglers that are making very good living that never fish at that level. Like, and that's kind of goes back to what I was saying. It is kind of like getting to the point where, do you have to fish professional level tournaments to really demand those sponsor dollars?
Chris J asks, he goes, would Matt recommend a high school senior 8-up with it to pursue pro fishing?
Yeah. So, I mean, I talk to a lot of high school teams, college teams. My response to that is basically what I just said. Like, absolutely, if it's something that you want to do, go for it. But I don't believe that if you just want to fish, that's the right path at this point. I think that's a very big piece of the puzzle. The better you are at fishing, the easier things will come. But the reality is, you got to be willing to put in the work doing the promotion aspect of it. I mean, like I said before, I really believe fishing is not a true sport. I think it is a marketing platform. And marketing platforms exist to sell product, whether you like it or not. That's what they exist for. And if you only want to fish, it's going to be really tough to do. If you want to put in the time to grow social media, to work shows, to work, for companies within the industry, whatever it is. I mean, it is an amazing industry, to be honest with you. Like, the people in the industry, you guys know, I mean, it is a small group of people. And for the most part, everyone is pretty awesome. Like, we all love to fish. Like, how could you not get along with these people that love to fish? But having said that, you burn bridges and it gets around too. So it's one of those things where you gotta want it. You gotta love it. And if you're a high schooler and you're looking to pursue it, you got to recognize that there's a lot more that goes into it than just what you see on Bass Live, right? Like, that's the fishing aspect of it. That's the fun part. But there's a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah, it's
I would also say, I'm sorry to cut you off, but the other important part of that is you got to have a fallback plan. Like, this is one of my biggest issues
out of my mouth.
Yeah, one of my biggest issues with high school and college fishing is that they go. I mean, you can go to college now basically to pursue being a professional angler. The part that I think goes often overlooked is you can come out of school with big debt, and then you can go try to, you come out of school, you've got college student loans, then you go pursue the professional angling career lifestyle that you dreamed about getting into. And you spend 3 years, because I feel like 3 years is kind of that number, right? That people try to make it from a tournament standpoint. If that 3 years doesn't go well, not only do you potentially have a lot of debt from the tournaments, the tournament lifestyle, more importantly, I think, which never goes talked about, is you've just removed yourself from the workplace for 3 years. So when you go to try to get a job, there's going to be a lot of questions like, you graduated in 2023, it's 2026. What did you do? Well, I fished. Well, that a lot of business people don't want to hear that as an answer, right? So,
well, to a corporate guy, not that I'm a corporate guy, but to a corporate America, that's fishing. We just talked about how small our industry is, right?
Yeah,
we're a tight knit group. Unless you're going to apply for a job that's a fisherman, he doesn't give a crap that you fished for 3 years. Like, you went out west and you were a bum on the Colorado River for, like, I bought a bass boat and a truck and I traveled around the country and I spent $50,000 every year and made really bad financial decisions.
Yeah.
What? Like, Yeah, you are correct about that. I always say have a fallback plan. Have, whether it's a vocation, whether it's a degree, whether it's if you go to trade school and you become a welder and you got a side hustle that you can help make while you're not fishing for 9 weeks.
Yeah.
Do something to supplement that income so you don't come out of it completely in debt. But to the other point is, there's so many different avenues besides fishing to get into this industry. Whether you're a product rep, whether you're a marketing manager, whether you work for one of the big companies, there's so many other avenues to get into it besides just fishing. And then you can still go out and fish for the love of fishing, not for the career of fishing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that wholeheartedly. I mean, it's, hey, you know, there was a comment earlier. Somebody made a comment about having a good CPA can take care of your expenses.
I saw that.
The reality is the government does not consider fishing, tournament fishing, a job. It's a hobby until you start making money.
Yep.
And my expenses every year are like $60,000 to $70,000. So to cover that, you got to generate some good income to make a dollar. If you don't make a dollar, I could make $50,000, but if my expenses are over that, government looks at that and says, that's a hobby this year. And if I do that too many years in a row, you better believe I'm getting audited. I've known a lot of guys in this industry that have been audited and they come back to collect back taxes of serious amounts because guys were writing off major losses. And the government says it's a hobby. It's not a business.
It's 7 years, right? Like, you got to
they can go back to I don't know. I think it's 7 years they can go back and do it. I think the stories I've heard is they generally have gone back 3 years. But
well, no, you have to, in 7 years, I think you have to, at some point within 7 years, you have to show
I've heard every 3 years you got to show a profit within 3 years.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's like a real number, or if that's just something like accountants are saying to keep from being audited. I'm not really sure offhand. All I'm saying is, yeah, you can have a good CPA and you can write off a lot of stuff, but that'll catch up to you too at some point.
Yeah, you're not a business.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't really want the government coming after me.
No, not at all. Don't get me fired up and talking about taxes. That crap. Taxes are
my wife and I
actually
crazy. Right before I left, she was talking about she was going to get this. She's a school teacher and they get something for doing something, right? And I just I started laughing and she's like, "Whoa," because it was a nominal amount of money. It was like $500, and she's like, "Well, 500 is 500." I said, "Yeah, but that gets taxed at 44% because that's unearned income." And she's like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "Well, how much work are you putting into this to get this?" And she's like, "Oh, probably 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours a week." And I'm, how many weeks? And she's like, "Oh, for the rest of the school year." I was like, "Stop. Like, it's not worth it at that point." I did the math on it. I was like, if you work 40 hours on this, you're going to make $7 an hour. She's like, "Are you serious?" Like, yeah, like that's how my brain works. So now, and I know in like the YouTube world, you put a lot of hours, a lot of time to make in the beginning to make small amounts of money, right? Like if you're what is it?
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's people making good money off YouTube, but YouTube, the revenue to be had through YouTube isn't really through YouTube. In my experience, it really is the fact that, again, YouTube is kind of the glue that allows you to kind of set up other revenue streams, and you can create an audience to market things to if you want, whether that's, I've core tackle, or whether that's me promoting a sponsored product. You can set up affiliate programs. You can, sell, you could put together a Christmas package if you wanted to and sell it, right? Like you could do whatever you wanted. And if you have a big enough audience, you probably can sell a decent amount of it. But I don't know if people out there think people on YouTube are making a ton of money or not. I mean, it's not, it's not that lucrative in terms of the YouTube dollars. But if you're got 5-6 different revenue streams and you're making a little bit in each one, it does add up for sure over time. And YouTube is the one that kind of allows you to reach those audiences.
It's your foundation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what Lure Lab was saying. He said now the main marketing platform is social media. So I think it all ties together, you know, like you said, it's all like about diversifying your portfolio, so to speak, in tournament fishing, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff is just kind of one conglomerate.
And YouTube is the avenue that I took. It doesn't mean that YouTube is the avenue that everyone, it's just for me, that's what worked. But I mean, I think there's a lot of people doing just fine on TikTok, a lot of people doing just fine on all the other social media platforms. And
there's one in particular that people are doing really well on.
What's that?
Well, not, and the three of us aren't able to.
You guys have one of those?
I know.
You talking fans only?
Only fans, yeah.
So here's my question with that. As good as some people are doing, how many people do you think are out there doing it that aren't making like $1?
Yeah, there's got to be a lot of out there that,
or they're making like $10 a month, or you know what I mean? Like there's got to be a lot of people out there that are struggling OnlyFans creators.
Based on my Instagram account, there's a lot of thirst traps out there. It's like it's crazy how that works. I know you don't do a lot of Instagram, but
I don't do any.
If you get these, I don't know who they are, but it's a chick picture that comes up and they like you, you know, or they want you to.
They're a bot, right?
I guess they're a bot, but it's crazy. If you just click on that picture for 1 second, then 5 more come behind it.
Yeah,
it's crazy. So I'm wondering how many Instagram accounts that have 25,000 followers, are 10,000 of those just these thirst traps that come along? Well, I would not be surprised.
Well, do you get paid for followers on Instagram?
I don't know. I mean, YouTube's like the only thing I do. The other stuff's just kind of side hustle stuff. But
I mean, YouTube has a revenue stream for both of you, I'm sure.
And
right?
Facebook, you can get paid on Facebook too.
Does Instagram have a revenue stream?
They used to have some sort of incentives with like doing reels and stuff like that. So you could, I'm sure there's ways to get paid. I'm not currently getting paid on Instagram. I mean, I use Instagram and Facebook and Twitter as ways to direct people to my YouTube account. Sure. That's what, like, I am very anti social media. Like I feel like it's the devil. And just to go back to what you were saying about Instagram and the thirst trap, I just read an article the other day that just makes me so concerned for the world. But people now are creating fictitious people through AI generators, right? So like people are going and saying, make me the most beautiful woman or man out there. And they're creating these fake pictures. And then people are taking those, creating Instagram accounts and Facebook accounts. And then they're taking it to the point where they're creating OnlyFans accounts with fake people. So like it's all one big, I don't know if scam's the right word or not, but I mean, it's everything is fake at that point. And you have people that are following all the way to the point where they're getting on OnlyFans, looking at people that they think are some real person, and it's all fake. And it's like, this is ridiculous. Like that's the world we live in now.
Well, you know, the recent national news on, we're getting way off base here, but the national news, you know, the gal that made like $1 million in 6 months or whatever.
I don't know.
OnlyFans. It was a teacher that decided to create an OnlyFans to create another revenue stream, whatever. But if we're in such tough economic times, who in the hell is paying $1 million, or multiple people paying $1 million for that content? Like,
so
people's mindset of where they spend their money are so screwed up right now.
So now we're really getting off base, but my theory on this goes back to a babysitter that I had that came to my wife and I one day and said, listen, I think I need to tell you this. I've started an OnlyFans account. Okay. She's one of the most intelligent girls I've ever met, extremely money driven, worked 3 jobs. She was a part-time temp, She was a babysitter, and she was like a stay-at-home hospice care, right? Like she was helping people until they died. I mean, that's how like she's a phenomenal girl. She came to us, told us that, and we're like, no, we're cool with you watching the kids. Like the kids love you. We've known her for years at this point. She ended up quitting all 3 jobs and now only does OnlyFans. And the reason I say that is that's 3 jobs that now need to be filled by somebody. And there are so many people now making money through content. Like, I feel like that's why we're seeing all these opening and jobs, especially a lot of them are, more of like jobs you'd see a lot of younger people get, right? Like, restaurants and stuff like that. And I just feel like one of the things we saw with COVID was it really got a lot of people to pursue other avenue streams and create this content to the point where it's actually created a glut not a glut, a shortage in the workforce. And that's my only experience with it in terms of that. But I'm like, that's 3 jobs that are open right now because she's now making content.
That's interesting. I never thought about that. So there's
OnlyFans has caused a job shortage.
A lot of entrepreneurism going
on.
on.
Well, and I'm not strictly saying OnlyFans. I mean,
no, but
I basically started my YouTube channel during that same time period. And like, again, not that I would retire off YouTube, but it is a job now, whether it's YouTube income or these other things that I do that are kind of connected to YouTube that I didn't do before, the last 3, I've done it for 3 years now. So I just think it's a way in the world these days, you're seeing the idea of making content, whether it's OnlyFans or YouTube or Instagram or a TikTok star. There are a lot more people out there that are not in the traditional workforce to pursue content creation.
That I never thought about that, but that completely makes sense.
Yeah, we should start only fish, right? Like pictures of big old bass. You think he might pay for those?
They'll pay for your toes though.
Feetfinder.com.
There's some crazy stuff out there.
We got in the weeds. Got way in the weeds.
We gotta recover from that rant.
Yeah, I gotta go to the question sheet now to get us back on track.
When's the last time you went on a fishing podcast that talked about OnlyFans?
I think this is a first.
First and only.
I feel like it's a first.
We might get shut down after this, but
no, he's been on. You get to listen to Travis Manson and some of those guys. They go way sideways, way sideways for like 5 hours. It's pretty funny. I was gonna ask. I just picked. I had a couple questions on here. I'll just bite off of them. So forward-facing sonar, man. I know it's like everybody gets tired of talking about it. Blah, blah,
he
blah.
just rolled his eyes at you.
I know, and I don't blame him. But
no, you've got all the hot topics today.
I do, man. I wrote a nice list.
Well,
man.
so hold on. The text that I sent to you guys the other day, and you said I should ask him.
Oh yeah,
it's like the whole controversy thing, isn't it?
Well, he's not going to answer that, but
we'll ask him off air. No,
let's hear it. You can't start with it.
All right, so it was are the big 3 Humminbird, Garmin, and Lowrance paying off Randy Blockett to create all this negative publicity, because any kind of publicity is good publicity, right? So is it like reverse marketing? You're laughing at it.
I told you.
Would it not be genius for them to be like, hey guy, you have one of the larger YouTube
any news is good
channels.
news.
I mean, if it's happening, Randy has not told me that's happening.
Nor will he ever.
Yeah, I mean, I no, I don't think that's happening. But I
don't think so either. But that would be a marketing genius if he was marketing himself to those companies like that.
I mean, a lot of people say that there's there's no such thing as bad exposure or whatever they say, right? Like I mean,
no bad publicity on that.
When you're talking about something is so good that it should be banned, it makes people think I should have that.
Right.
Like, So I'm sure it probably helps sell some units. I do think you're going to see limitations on it though in the future.
There needs to be. I think there needs to be a number of screens or number of transducers or something. I mean, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's here to stay just for their, the electronics companies are embedded in bass fishing, tournament fishing, but I think there probably needs to be a limitation sometime. And I don't know, maybe I'll get some hay mail for that, but it's going to keep going. You look at,
well, you know what the hot thing, the hot thing for next year is, right?
What?
I feel like I shouldn't even say it because everyone will go out and do it. They're all buying, so a lot of guys are running 2 transducers off the jack plate, which guys were doing last year. So they're graphing, they're idling with it, shooting off to the side. But apparently there's a saltwater version of it that is phenomenal in terms of range. So you can shoot 300 feet. And so guys will run 2 transducers. They'll have the saltwater one, and then they're having their standard one. And then, so they're shooting 300 feet, and then that allows them to pin them from further away. I mean, when you think about that, that's a football field to either direction. I mean, that's a huge area that you can scan, and then, then they'll go in that direction and pull up. And then once they can see them on the standard unit transducer, they'll fish with them on that because it's got, I guess, more clarity. But I mean, it's only, like you said, it's only going to continue to advance. At some point, in my opinion, the organizations will say enough's enough. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to say it's all done or it's all banned. It's, it's going to be a matter of figuring out what the right ground is. Maybe they say half the tournaments you can use whatever you want, and the other half you can't have an electronic on your boat. I don't know what it is, but I do agree that at some point there'll be some form of limitations.
So are they using the salt to shoot off the back?
No, they've got it on the trolling motor.
The salt's on the trolling motor.
That's what, yeah. I mean, I haven't had experience with that. I just know a lot of guys are telling me that there's a way to set it in really well. So it's, like a long distance scope basically. And then they're just,
how much, how big a role did forward facing sonar play for you last year? Are you somebody that gets out there and tries to find that bite, or I don't see you as that guy. I see you as kind of more traditional.
I kind of consider myself an all around do everything I need to do type guy.
Right.
I will say last year I weighed 3 fish with forward facing sonar last year. Out of the entire year, that's what I weighed. And that, I think that it comes down to more than anything. We had a lot of really good shallow water power events. Lake Okeechobee was one, Potomac River was one, Mississippi River. Although, I mean, I did 2 of the fish I caught at Mississippi River were 2 of the 3 that I weighed using it were at the Mississippi River. But so I Lake of the Ozarks, I primarily bed fish. So it's not my strength. I feel very comfortable using it, but it's, I am by no means the angler that goes out there and commits to it all day long. I'll if I need to do it, I'll do it. Like if we're at Lake St. Clair, absolutely I'm doing it. Like that's you will get your butt beat if you're not doing it. But if I can, fish my strengths, that was one of the things when I started this season. Yeah, I really went into it going, I'm just going to fish my strengths. I know in a lot of these lakes, it should be a forward facing sonar thing, but if I can fish my strengths and do it as well as I think I can do it, I should be able to compete regardless. And, I think it lined up well for me this year, especially from a schedule standpoint where I was able to do it.
You got to be the only, I bet you're the only person. I mean, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say you're probably the only person that finished in the top 20 in AOI that only caught 3 fish with forward facing sonar.
I mean, I'd be willing to bet you that I was, I'm an outlier with respect to that. But but again, I don't want to, it's not that I'm like against it. It just, it's just it's how it worked out this year. But I did think it was funny how I was going to lakes. Like we went to Clarks Hill Lake and I fully expected that to be a you know, a forward facing sonar event. And I spent 2 days of practice doing it, and I was catching the crap out of spotted bass. But on Clarks Hill Lake, there's spotted bass don't get real big there. And, you know, the one day I chased largemouth in practice, I had 6 or 7 bites, but a couple of them were not even that big, like 2.5 pounders. But I hadn't seen a spotted bass over like 1 3/4 pounds. So I went all in on the largemouth, and I basically figured out the pattern in the tournament and ended up finishing 16th or something. You know, I had like 15 a day chasing largemouth, and I was pretty much fishing docks and laydowns. Like, you know, that I really feel comfortable doing everything. That's, you know, I grew up pretty much river fishing, so I feel very, very comfortable fishing current, fishing shallow water. Like, that is what if I can do, that's what I prefer to do. But I also live up here in the North Country where we have tons of natural lakes that are gin clear. I do really well on the Great Lakes. Like, I love fishing deep water too. It's just the schedule really didn't line up for that much this year.
I think that says a lot about you as an angler, the being versatile and not just being married to one specific technique. Because that's the key to longevity in tournament fishing and life enjoyment, is to be versatile. You know, just to be able to be good at a lot of different things instead of just being so technique specific. You know, there's a lot of guys. There's a lot. We had Trey McKinney on here a couple of weeks ago. You know, he was an opens angler who qualified for the elites. First time. He's 18 years old, I think. Super young, super good fisherman. He's a local guy. He's from Southern Illinois. I fished a lot of the same. We fish a lot of the same lakes. He's good without forward-facing sonar, and he grew up not fishing forward-facing sonar. But he said on the stream, I asked him, why do you think this crop of young fishermen has came in and basically somewhat dominated the opens? And he said technology, electronics. So there's a lot of fishermen that are leaning on that. And I think it's eventually, I don't know, this is kind of being selfish because I'm a little bit old school, but I think some of that forward-facing sonar, if you lean on that too hard, it's going to burn you at some point in time. It may be 3 or 4 years from now. You know, we're already kind of seeing these fish. I'm seeing it a lot. I'm seeing these fish getting spooked. And I've heard several people over the last 3 or 4 weeks, we fished some tournaments at Lake of the Ozarks. We had the Warrior William tournament down there, and then we had the Anglers in Action Championship. And I talked to several guys in weigh-in. They were talking about scanning. You know, they're scoping. They shoot the beam on the brush pile, and fish just vacate the brush pile. Like, they get the hell out of there. So there's fish are starting to get used to that. I don't know if it will ever get to the point where as soon as they touch it in every lake, they're going to just bail and it's not even going to work anymore. But there's going to be some point where that LiveScope magic is going to start diluting a little bit, I think, especially the people that lean on it heavily. So it's just good to see that you're you're versatile. You know, you're sampling it. You're not running away from it, but you know how to do everything.
I think part of that is because I may have tried to lean on it too much last season, and I didn't have a good year. So when I went into this year, I was like, I'm doing it my way. And if that's what like begins to occur when I'm there, like, yeah, I feel comfortable doing it. Like, I really feel like I'm just fine at it. This year it just didn't happen, but I do feel like a lot of it was because I tried to put too much emphasis on it the year before, to the point where I do think it potentially burned me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like if you are at the top of that game, that's what you should be doing. Like, you know, if you're a Trey McKinney or, you know, a Drew Gill, some of these young kids they are amazing, amazing with it. You know, there is part of me though that's a little bit concerned for them from the standpoint of, what if they do end up banning it or getting rid of it? Like, are you going to potentially have some anglers that have gone all in on it that now are like high and dry? I mean, I'm not knocking any of them as anglers. I don't know how good. I don't know Trey. You know, I don't know most of these young guys who are doing it, but it does make me wonder if they've committed their angling career to it. Are they going to be able to do the other things that they might need to do if something happens? And I don't think it's going to be. I don't think we'll see a drastic like it's gone. Like it's just you can't have it in your boat. I think there'll be I think it'll be more like limitations on transducers and stuff like that.
I think Trey and Drew are going to be fine. I mean, I know them a little bit, and I know their history, and they're good fishermen regardless.
Yeah.
And they put in the time. That's the key. If you were to take the forward facing sonar away from them, they're going to put in the time. They're going to go out there and figure out how to catch fish regardless. They caught fish with before, they're going to catch fish with after it. So I think that, you know, like you said earlier, if the best anglers, whether it's on the water or YouTube or social media, whatever, they're people that grind. You know, they're out there busting their balls and putting in the time and the effort. So I think they're going to be fine. Oh, quick question. How many pieces of Sasquatch memorabilia do you think you have? Just ballpark figure right now.
That I have that I purchased?
I know you got the two shirts.
I mean, I probably have, oh my God. I mean, I probably have 20 pieces. I get people send me stuff.
Is it like flare? Like you got 20 pieces of flare that you wear?
I mean, I've got everything from like pins and hats and shirts. I tend to give a lot of it away, but I bet you right now, if I went through my house, I could easily find 20 pieces.
Yeah.
It's probably less. I mean, yeah, some of the guesses are just ridiculously high, but I mean, like Mark has 199 there. I've probably gotten 199 random things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're
I don't think
you're labeled now, man. There's no getting out of it.
Oh God, dude. Anytime there's like a potential sighting, I have like 50 people tag me in it. Like Matt Pangrak of Bass Dog Live is one of the guys. If there is anything remotely Bigfoot related, like a new sighting, he sends me the article clip. Yeah.
I get that too a little bit.
I can't stress enough. Like I wish I really enjoyed the Bigfoot thing. It's not a topic that really interests me, which is the part that I think is funny because of
you had one of the best sightings ever.
I know. Like I wish I was all jazzed about seeing it. I wish I hadn't seen it because all it does is freak me out now if I'm by myself in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah,
I laugh because
you laugh. Had you seen what I saw, you might not be laughing about.
No, I laugh because I listen to enough of these stupid podcasts because of him that when I'm walking in at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning and it's pitch black dark, like, and you hear something rustling in the leaves next to you, it's like it's probably a deer. But
I got one for you.
It's still in the back of your head of what the hell was that?
So last week I was out on Cedar, just the dog and I, and had a nature call. So I'm scoping. I'm looking for a spot. The lake's down low.
Not literally scoping, folks.
I'm looking for a place to put the boat on the bank and run up in the woods and take care of business. And I found a place. So you get to a point where you're committed to whatever you're doing. You're committed. I had the dude wipe, so I was committed that way.
You're full lean.
And I'm thinking, if a Sasquatch comes out of the woods or whatever, a bobcat,
at least you're not going to mess your pants.
Yeah, I'm screwed. I'm either gonna come out with my life, but be stinking, or I'm just gonna succumb to the woods, and they're gonna have to send a search party out and try to find.
Do you think a Sasquatch though would want to take advantage of your position? Like
I feel like,
yeah, I feel like they would. I mean,
I think they're fair.
They'd have their way with you regardless. And
yeah,
I would just think that they would be like, I'm not touching him while he's doing that. I'll let him finish, let him clean himself up, and then I'm going to eat him for dinner. like, or
I
do
think there's a
whatever.
respect amongst mammals.
So is that like a deer hunter in the middle of rut? Like when that big old buck is breeding that deer?
Never
Wait,
shoot.
wait till he finishes.
It's like
and
punching
then,
a guy
like,
with glasses. Same concept, right? You don't punch somebody.
I mean,
with glasses.
don't you feel a little bad about plucking a bass off a bed?
Yeah,
Like
I
if
do.
he's got the lady in there, like I feel bad about it.
I do too.
I mean that'd be
well,
like
hold on.
me being.
You feel bad about plucking the 2-pound male or the 8-pound female?
I feel bad about plucking either of them if they're in there, if they're fooling around together. Yeah, I feel like I'm being nothing but a pain in their butt.
Yeah, I mean, you're having a moment with your wife, and here comes.
And the kids are knocking on the door. It's like it's just not. It's not what you're after.
Yeah,
I feel sorry for the doves. You know how doves pair up,
and then you shoot one,
and then you just see the one dove after dove season. He's flying around. He lost his mate
partner
or her mate or whatever.
Have you ever ate dove?
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's pretty. It's
I
pretty
used to shoot doves all the time. Yeah, I used to shoot doves. I was like 25 shells, maybe get 3 doves.
Yeah, they're still
doves,
really
but
good.
It was fun, man. It was a blast. We got a winner, right?
Yeah.
How do you say the name?
Shantez.
Shantez. Pull it up. Can you get back to it?
I got it right there.
Oh, you got it.
Screen.
Oh yeah, 111. Shantez, hit me up on Facebook at Gabe Montgomery Fishing, or 10 Horse Monty, or on Instagram 10 Horse Monty 6. Just let me know you're the winner. Send me your email, and I will get a hold of Brian tomorrow at Baitworks, and we'll get you a gift card on the way. See. A couple more questions, real quick.
That's how you say it.
Oh, okay, got it.
I'm still confused.
Got it.
There was a question that posed earlier. Are you going to be able to live stream during your BPT events?
I don't know yet. The question's been asked. As far as I know, we haven't gotten an answer yet. I don't, based on the way they responded to the question, I would say we're probably not, but we still haven't gotten an answer yet.
Okay. Any new changes for 24 sponsorship
wise? That's what I was going to ask.
No, not really. Okay. Everyone is pretty much on board. Having said that, I feel very comfortable with the sponsor portfolio I have, and I can't say I necessarily was out there hounding anything. I really feel like I did a pretty good job at solidifying the deals that I have. So yeah. I mean, it was beneficial to move up to the BPT. I'll tell you that.
Heck yeah. You still building your own rods?
Yeah. Still building all my own rods through Mudhole and MHX. They've actually got 4 kits now, Matt Stefan Signature Series kits. So if you want to get into building rods,
dude, you're big time, man.
You can build the exact rods. I mean, every component that I use is in that, my exact measurements, everything. So you can build a Matt Stefan Signature Series rod.
What are those 4 rods?
So we've got a MHX NSJ 871. It's a 7.3 medium light spinning rod. It's kind of like a all-purpose finesse rod that you can use for like all of your light line applications, really. I've got a CB 907. It's a chatterbait blank. I've got a NMB 873. So it's a all-purpose 7.3 medium heavy rod. And then what's the last? An FP 885. It's a 7.4 5-power flipping stick.
Okay, cool. You got everything covered with those 4 rods, and like
the numbers.
Yeah, that was kind of that was what?
The numbers are kind of messing with me. Like the 885 is
7.4 5-power, so it's 88 inches.
God,
the first 2 numbers, most rod companies, a lot of times the first couple numbers are just inches.
Yeah.
And then the last number a lot of times is the power of the blank. Which
I mean,
if you're not familiar with powers, that doesn't do much, but yeah.
Like a 735 would be a 735 power. That's what.
Yeah, so that would probably be it would either be a 7'3" or other companies, if it's in inches, would be a 6'1". It's probably a 7'3", but yeah, it's usually one of those 2 things. It's either the exact like foot inch mark or its
Yeah.
total inches.
That's the inches part was throwing me off. I'm used to the foot, inches, and then the power. What
Any-
about core tackle? What's going on with you guys have been working on some swim bait heads recently?
Oh man, dude, I've got so many prototypes laying around here. It's starting to get pretty confusing. But yeah, we just released Monday. Last Monday, we released what we call the Ozark rig, which is kind of a replacement to a standard Texas rig. And it's just a really good flipping bait. It's really good with like some of your swimming worms or a soft stick bait. It basically allows you to fish like a hover rig, but be fully weedless with a heavier gauge hook for like your heavier action or heavier tackle. I've fallen in love with that thing. I don't know that I've had a Texas rig, and I'm a flipper. I haven't had a Texas rig on, I think, since June. It's been all Ozark rig stuff and lots of Wednesday night tournaments dialing that one in. But yeah, we got it to the point where we were 100% confident in it and released it last week, and it's done pretty well. It's met our expectations for sure. Feedback on it's been really good. So we've got that. We've got some finesse tush, which is the ultimate swim bait head. So that's our swim bait one. We've got some finesse sizes, so a lighter wire hook for people that like to use their small swim baits on spinning gear and light line. So we've got that coming out. We've got a swim jig coming out. We've got another jig called the sled jig, which is like an all-purpose kind of a hybrid football jig type, casting jig type thing. We got a lot of stuff in the works. We got a wacky rig hook we're coming out with. Yeah, we're really trying to do it.
It sounds like it. Geez, that's a lot of stuff since just the hover rig. It was the hover rig for a while, and then boom, it's just growing.
Yeah, we've got 24 SKUs right now, and I think hopefully by the Red Crest / Bassmaster Classic week, we'll be like in that 70 range.
Will you
we'll have booths at both those.
Okay, cool.
Will you be at both?
That's the plan right now. Yeah.
Sweet.
I mean, I'll be fishing Red Crest, so hopefully I'm fishing and not at the booth, but yeah.
Yeah. What about the Ozark rig? I see there's so much going on, man. I didn't even know about that. I had no idea.
So that
you got one around or not?
I'm sure I got one around somewhere. If you saw my desk right now. Yeah, here's one. So it's not mind blowing.
We put you on solo.
So this is what it looks like, and it's a 60-degree jig hook.
Yeah.
And it's got, so you rig it the same way. Hopefully, do I have
There's not a wall full of plastics behind you or anything.
No, from Berkeley.
So I've got a Berkeley MaxScent Creature Hog. You rig it just like you'd rig like your standard worm hook. You just pop it through, but then you just slide it up and turn it around, and you pop it over that slanted, we call it our bait keeper. So you rig it exactly like you'd rig a Texas rig. The cool thing is, like when your line is coming out the eye, it actually pushes your worm, keeps your worm flush against that. So it comes through cover, comes through grass, everything completely weedless. But the cool thing about it is you get the same gliding motion that you'd get out of a hover rig. Like we're going to be putting out a bunch of underwater footage and things like that to show the difference between this and like a standard Texas rig. But for me, one of the coolest things about it is I would say 90% of the fish are hooked right in the very top of the mouth. Like this ramp, because the bait, no matter when the bait falls, it'll find its center. So when it's like in the fish's mouth, the weight will be on the bottom, and it always forces that hook right into the top of the fish's mouth. And the hook.
Oh,
did I lose you?
Sorry.
There you are.
I'm good.
Yeah, I don't know that I don't think I've lost a fish on it all year, to be honest with you. I mean, it's just you're sticking them with a jig hook. I mean, it's when it gets them at that point. But it's For me, it's more of a replacement for a Texas rig, but like I said, at the same time, if you want to replace like worms with it, like a speed worm or a brush hog or a soft stick bait, like you put a Senko or a General on it, and that thing just goes wherever. I mean, it just glides. So it's just a different look again.
What's the weight ranges on those?
We've got a couple different sizes. We've got both are 4/0 hooks. We've got an 1/8 ounce and a 3/16 ounce. The hopes are we're evaluating a lot of different tungsten options, and we would like to do both those sizes in tungsten, which would then mean you could almost double the weight. So you'd be looking at a quarter and like a 3/8
Okay.
to get a little heavier.
So all the weight's wrapped along the hook.
Yeah, it's all tapered. It's all, what did I do with that? It's all tapered. It's a tapered weight from the bottom up to the top. So it gradually gets bigger, and that allows the weight transfer to be just right to get it to glide versus wanting to settle straight downward.
Is that weight poured onto the jig head then?
Yeah, that's all poured on. And, yeah, it's just a different type of jig head.
Okay.
And
then it's just painted black at this point.
Looks like I gotta spend some more money, Matt. I gotta spend some more money. Gosh, I want to try it. You gotta try it.
That's my job. I'm a marketer now.
Yeah, I like the hover rig, man. I mean, last time you were on here, I bought some hover rigging stuff, and it's a cool bait. It's different.
Yeah, our goal with Core Tackle, our motto is to innovate, not imitate, right? Like, so we're looking at, we don't want to do anything that people have done already. We really are trying to do our own thing. And, we'd rather be known for our innovation. And I recognize, like with the hover rig now, there's some cheaper models out there, but, we feel like we put the time and effort into developing it, and we do it, it's all American made products. And at that point, that's kind of the price it costs us to come up with all that.
I think that would be a tungsten thing. Richard says, any chance the Ozark rig is going to be in a 3/8 or 1/2 ounce? That lead might get too big on the.
Yeah, we prototyped it all the way up to a 1/2 ounce, and it's too much lead. You get to the point where if your plastic doesn't tear out completely, you put a pretty good hole in it. But that's why we really want to move to a tungsten line with that, where we can get some of the heavier sizes, because if we could get up to about a 1/2 ounce, and you're really not much bigger at all than our 3/16 ounce. Be a little bit bigger, but that's it.
Yeah. Here's a question from Faith First Fishing. What's your go-to on the forward-facing sonar swim bait rig?
Well, the hover rig is like kind of my jam with that. If I'm fishing 15 foot of water or less, the hover rig for sure. I mean, I've got a bunch of different baits I really like to throw on it. I really like Kitech Shad Impact. I really like the Rhythm Wag by Jackal. I really like a Berkeley. I like a 4 1/4 inch Max Scent flatworm, the big flatworm. I love that Creature Hog on it. Those are for like fishing shallower forward facing, shallower water with forward facing. If I'm going deeper, I like to do the tush with the spunk shad on it. So this is, just the Core Tackle tush jig head inserted inside a spunk shad. And then, you can fish, depending on the weight you're throwing, you can fish that thing down to 40 foot if you want. That's kind of the Jacob Wheeler type deal thing.
That's fun. I've been doing that a little bit lately. Just that minnow head type stuff. It's just a little bit different. Couple more questions. We'll wrap this up. I wanted to ask you, like, what are 3 baits that put most of your keepers in the boat in 2023? Like, I know that's hard to like narrow it down. It depends on the lake and the time of the year and all that. But like, are there just a few handful of baits that you really leaned on this year?
Dude, every tournament really was different. I mean, I guess The max scent, the Berkeley max scent general caught almost every fish I weighed in at the Potomac River and the win at the Mississippi River. Other than that, like every tournament had its own deal. So, at Okeechobee, most of them were on a Berkeley spin rocket, a top water prop bait. I was throwing both at Clark's Hill, I was throwing a jackhammer and a slobber knocker. 9% of my way in tournament, I think I had 5 vibrating jigs on different rods. And then Lake Eufaula, I caught the majority of them on a max scent creature hog on a hover rig. Eufaula, Oklahoma. Lake of the Ozarks, that was bed fishing, and I caught them on a bunch of different, bed fishing baits, I guess. And then the last 2 were the Wacky Rig General. I really do. I feel like I'm a very versatile angler, and it's just about finding a pattern for that lake at that time, and then figuring out, whatever that pattern is kind of dictates my bait choice.
Yeah. That's man, you got to be versatile. That's such a, like, I don't know. I don't even like asking that question, but it's interesting. Sometimes there's like a guy that caught almost all his fish on that jig. You just never know. There's people that
I think a lot of it kind of depends. I feel like it depends on where the angler's from. Like I feel like a lot of times the anglers from my neck of the woods, the upper Midwest, are very well-rounded anglers, because we've got river systems, we got dirty water, we've got natural lakes, smallmouth, largemouth, lots of grass. Like, you do a little bit of everything, but if you come out of a region, not to pick on you guys, but like the Ozark lakes are all pretty similar.
Mhm.
And the patterns that work on Table Rock probably work on Beaver or Ozark, Lake of the Ozarks. And so, not that it doesn't make you well-rounded, I feel like you just have to work harder to become more well-rounded, because you've got your seasonal patterns that work on those lakes, and you really got to get out of that area to really find a body of water that doesn't set up like a traditional Ozark lake. The same thing, if you live in Florida, you've got Florida lakes. They're all basically the same. So if you want to learn how to fish the Ozarks, you got to go to the Ozarks at that point to do it. So I feel fortunate. As much as I hate the drives I have to get to these places, I do feel like it helps me be a well-rounded angler to come out of the upper Midwest.
Do you have grass in like most of your lakes there? Or is it, do you have, is there anything like Lake of the Ozarks where you're at? Where it's got a lot of rock, a lot of docks with no grass?
We've got some I don't know why, but we've got a lot of natural lakes that they may have grass, but they don't have as much grass as you would expect. I mean, like the Great Lakes, for example. I mean, you can find some grass, but there's really not much grass.
Mhm.
Like a lake like Mille Lacs, if you want to go up there, chase smallmouth. I mean, yeah, you can get into some of the back bays, but if you're out on the main lake, there's not much grass. I mean, there's
Yeah.
not much where the fish are. So the majority of the lakes have grass in some form or fashion, but it's not necessarily always the case.
Yeah.
A lot of the lakes that I actually live on, which are Wisconsin River based, don't have that much grass. The water's dirty, so the grass tends to only grow down to about 2 foot as it is. And if you have a high water year, the grass gets ripped out.
Yeah, I think that's where we live at in Cape Girardeau. We're near Illinois, southern Illinois, which most of those lakes over there, a lot of those lakes have grass. I wouldn't say most of them, because there are, like, Wren Lake doesn't have grass. Crab Orchard really doesn't have grass. It's got the shoreline grass, but not like milfoil, coontail, and that type of stuff. But we do have several of those lakes that have grass. And then we've got some strip pit lakes.
We don't have a lot of Ozark.
We don't have a lot of rock, like strictly like bull shoals.
Go down the bank,
Table
cranking
Rock.
a ward or something like that.
A Kentucky lake, right now it doesn't have grass, and so that's 2 hours away. That's a Tennessee River lake that's just rock. So we got a lot in this little area. Now to get out to to Table Rock and Lake of the Ozarks, it's 4 to 5 hour drive. So that's not someplace that we fish that often. But Kentucky Lake's 2 hours. That's not that far. And then all these other lakes are an hour. So there's definitely some training, some versatility in this area.
Well, it's like when we would fish go to the regional, and it was on a grass lake, like a Chickamauga or something like that. And you, as a co-angler, you draw a guy from the Ozark area, and he's like, I've never seen grass like this before.
There are quite a few.
Thank
that
God,
really
I got
grass.
somebody that never has fished grass before, and I can mop up behind you.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that's all I'm saying is I feel like most of the other parts of the country are a lot more regional based. You've got very defined parts of the country that most of the lakes fit a certain mold. The upper Midwest really isn't that way. We've got everything from reservoirs, the natural lakes, to, rivers, to Great Lakes. So it's very diverse in the area versus, just if you grow up around the TVA, that's what is a lot of ledge fishing and, TVA type stuff, but it doesn't necessarily relate over to a lot of different types of lakes.
Let's wrap this up. It has been fun. Appreciate you hanging out with us. You answered a lot of good questions. I know we kind of got in hot and heavy into the state of the tournament fishing nowadays, but it was good to get some feedback from somebody that's been in it for a while and is moving on to the next level. We'll all be following you. I'll be pulling for you. Any last shout outs or any things you want to cover before we wrap up?
I'm good, guys. I love coming on here because we do just kind of shoot the, while we're doing it and free flowing, which is always, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot more fun than like the stage set questions. And so I enjoy it. I love coming on. I don't feel like I got into trouble today.
I think you did good. I think you navigated well.
I think I did all right. So
I was actually secretly hoping we would get you in a little trouble.
You were on Erie, and there were some big waves that you idled through the trough just perfectly, I think.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And, anytime you guys need me on, give me a call and we'll make it happen.
We appreciate it.
Sounds good, man. All right. We're going to sign off on that. Thanks for everybody that hung out with us tonight. And we do this every week on Tuesday. Hope to see you guys next Tuesday.